Well, there's been times before where they weren't concerned about the optics of these sorts of situations when pressed to be hands-on in some of these different stories. Mark Thiessen joins me now, former presidential speechwriter and an American Enterprise Institute fellow. Mark, good evening. Good to have you here.
Evening, Martha. How are you?
I'm doing well. I mean, the big question is, what is the president thinking on this issue? What is he planning to do? Everybody's trying to figure that out.
It's a mystery, quite frankly. I mean, look, it looks terrible for the president to go to the state of Texas for a fundraiser but not go to the border. But the problem isn't that he's not going to the border. The problem is that he doesn't have a plan to deal with the crisis at the border. I mean, if you show up at the border and don't announce a plan, that's worse than not showing up. So the big problem isn't that he's not going to the border. The big problem is that nobody knows what he's going to do to solve this crisis.
I mean, when you look at this situation, and Josh Earnest sent the message that a lot of these kids are going to be deported. Now, we all know that's going to be a very lengthy bureaucratic process. And in the meantime, you've got kids sleeping on the floor, with Red Cross, paper blankets over them. And there seems to be no impetus to do something to get your hands around the problem. The president, appears to be somewhat neglectful, or has been somewhat neglectful, because this has been coming for some time.
And he caused this crisis. I mean, look, a new poll out shows that nearly 60% of Americans think that President Obama is personally responsible for this crisis at the border. And they're right. He issued an executive order on the deportation of unaccompanied minors that basically said that if you're here illegally, we'll delay your deportation. That sent a signal throughout the hemisphere that if you get here, you're going to get to stay. So tens of thousands of people have come. And now he doesn't seem to have a plan for what to do with them. Apparently, last week he told Congress that he's going to seek this authority to send people back to Central America the same way we do with Mexico. Now the Associated Press is reporting that that's not the case, and that he's backing off of that under pressure from liberal groups. If that's true, that's a really troubling scenario, because what that means is he cares more about appeasing liberal immigration groups before a midterm election than he does about getting control of our border.
And it sort of speaks to a larger issue that he's being criticized about, across the board. Does he have a plan? Does he take action, whether it's in Iraq, or whether it's with healthcare, or whether it's with the IRS? The list goes on, Mark, and it's really across the board on the Sunday programs, all over the networks. Everybody's asking the same question. Does he care? Is he neglecting his duty?
Yeah, I mean, his presidency is really engulfed in crises in three areas. He's engulfed in crisis abroad, he's involved in crisis at home, and he's involved in crisis at the border. I don't know where else you could have a crisis. I mean, you have the VA scandal, you have the IRS scandal and the implosion of the emails at home, you've got the Obamacare problems that are happening. Abroad, you've got Iraq imploding and the rise of ISIS, and you've got this border crisis. And he doesn't seem to have a handle on any of these things. And again, the polls show that Americans hold him responsible for all these problems. So, going to the border and having a press conference and sort of showing he cares is not going to solve it. He's got to these are real problems. You're not going to change public opinion until you change the conditions on the ground, whether it comes to Iraq, whether it comes to these scandals that are engulfing, or whether it comes to this border crisis we're having today.
Part of, obviously, a big part of being president is crisis management. When something happens, you have to act. And I think that is where, you look at the polls. I mean, this isn't my opinion. I mean, look across these polls that we've been watching all throughout the last several weeks. People feel that he is not, that there's a lack of competency in the White House. And Peggy Noonan pointed out in an editorial over the weekend, in her opinion, it doesn't appear that he's bothered by that.
Yeah, no, I think she's probably right. And if you look at it, Gallup poll, confidence in the presidency has dropped from 51% when he took office to 29%. A majority, 54% of Americans, say that he is not up to the job of governing this country. A Quinnipiac poll, worst president since World War II. I mean, people feel that this president is not engaged, that not only that he's not solving the problems, they believe he's causing the problems. Majority of Americans think that he caused the crisis in Iraq. Majority of Americans think he caused the crisis at the border. So it's not just even that he's not solving the problems, that he's causing these problems that we're facing right now.
Well, we're going to talk about that more coming up. Mark, thank you very much. Good to see you tonight.
Thanks.